You are now tuned in to the Last of Its Kind podcast, produced by humans made for humans.
Yo, check this out. We connect the streets.
Yeah, baby.
This is Mike Johns, Check This Out News, bringing it to you live each and every week. And with us today, we got the Sidekick OG.
Former brand manager of T-Mobile, Jeff Foligno.
Jeff Foligno in the house. And today we're going to talk about the Sidekick story. What is your magic? What's your secret sauce?
I would say that it's the fact that I was passionate then about the products and the relationships that I built. And I'm still passionate about products that I work on or want to bring to market today.
Futurist for Digital Mind State, Mike Johns.
Things happen, like real iconic things happen for the culture. We got to talk about that. Like the genesis of this, where it was the fact that Steve Rifkin and DJ Ski was connected with T-Mobile to do something. So these people got on a plane from LA to Seattle. Like this device, more impactful than the BlackBerry, that helped usher in, would you say, the mobile first mentality?
Yeah, because, as Danger, the company that created the product, called it the hip top. Desktop, a laptop, and a hip top.
Church. I got DJ Will in the building. Let's go. Jeff, how you feel?
I'm good, Mike. I'm good. I'm glad that we're finally having this discussion around this topic. One of my favorite ones to talk about, as you know.
Yes, indeed. DJ Will, how you feel?
Man, I'm doing great. I'm glad that you guys invited me in.
So I'm going to dive in for time's sake. Fans, I got texts. People hit me on the DM asking certain questions. I want to start this off with, what made the T-Mobile Sidekick such an innovative and iconic product for pop culture?
So I think it's a combination of timing, the innovation that the product brought, and the marketing strategy, of course.
A T-Mobile Sidekick.
Your friends, all in one place. The new T-Mobile Sidekick.
So just to take it back, it's a totally different world back then than what we have today. Think of this product. It was the first cloud-based phone.
I was just going to ask you to share some of the innovation that this phone actually packed.
It had the first app store, which T-Mobile called the download catalog, where you could download applications, ringtones, etc. I got involved through the Sidekick because I had just launched the GPRS network for T-Mobile, which is the 2G network. So long ago, that was back in 2000 to 2001. And with that GPRS network, we launched the first WAP phone, web-enabled phone. That was basically words on a screen that you got through the network. And because of that, I was the only person with experience launching products in the company. So I got involved with the product basically when Danger, the company from Palo Alto that designed the Sidekick, which they called it the Danger Hip Top because it was a laptop on your hip, they came in with a carved block of wood. So I got started at the very onset where it was just a concept. And because of that, I was able to be a part of the entire process, from the hardware to the software, what the user interface looked like, how it worked. I got to be a part of every single aspect, which was really amazing as a young product and marketing guy. The ability to have that fall into my lap was incredible. And because of that, part of why it was even more incredible and I got to learn so much within my career around this is because the innovation for this product happened outside of the company. It happened outside of T-Mobile. It was actually in Palo Alto, right? Silicon Valley were the guys that were making this product. And so it wasn't people just doing their day-to-day, trying to get through their day at T-Mobile that were designing this product and what it should do. It was really innovation that was happening outside of someone in the wireless industry just doing their day-to-day. And because of that, it also didn't fit into any processes that T-Mobile had. So I got to be, no one wanted part of it in the beginning. To let you guys know a little secret, no one wanted any part of it because it was outside the norm. They didn't know how to design processes to test it, how to test the UI, user testing. All those things were so new from what phones had been, feature phones as we call them in today's world.
This is before smartphone, right?
This is before the smartphone. I think it was a combination of timing and innovation. So if you think back to the time of the Sidekick, when it first launched, there was not Gmail yet. Your Sidekick came with a T-mail email address. There wasn't Gmail yet, so we weren't all out running around consumers with email addresses other than AOL, right? And so the other part of this, the innovation side, was it was a cloud-based device. So it was what you would call a thin client. So all your contacts, everything was stored in the cloud. And so that was also a very big innovation, because if you lost that Sidekick, basically you just were able to put in a new SIM card and download all your information. Gone are the days of, I lost my phone, I lost all my contacts.
Right.
All backed up on the network. And I still even remember, and it's funny to think about in today's world, but being at CES with Danger, when they first were debuting the Sidekick at CES, and it won Best in Show, where what they did was they dropped a bowling ball on a Sidekick. They basically then picked up the broken device, pulled the SIM card out, put it in a new Sidekick, and all the contacts downloaded, and people were actually clapping and cheering. So it's weird to think about that today, that was such an innovation that you could get a new device and all your stuff went with you. Some of the other pieces of this were, you had real web browsing. I mentioned that I had launched the WAP product for T-Mobile, which was just words on a display that you got over the network. But this was actual real web browsing. Like, that was totally different to have on your phone. The other pieces of this were, it was fun. It didn't take itself too seriously, right? If you think back about some phones, if you think back about your experience with the Sidekick, the ringtones, it had flashing lights when your ringtone went off. Like, it was fun, and it didn't try to be something it wasn't. In today's world, we see that all the time with the Facebook messengers and IG that we're using. But back then, before then, you would send a text on your two-way, and you never knew if someone got it. Did they see it? Did they not read it? So AOL brought that whole aspect of, I know you're online, I know you saw my message, get back to me. There's no faking. And I'd say the other piece is, when you think about it, what we called it was the ultimate communication device, because it was a communication device that included a phone. It wasn't a phone first. It was a communication device. It was fun. Think about how fun that device was. It didn't look like any other phone. Flashing blue and magenta lights, crazy ringtones that you hadn't heard before. And it never tried to be too serious. It wasn't business first. It was consumer first, fun.
No, that's a good point. When we look at phones like iPhone, the latest Samsung, so you know, I almost chime in on when phones were fun, hearing you say that. But, you know, that leads me to, what did the Sidekick do for hip hop, and what did hip hop do for T-Mobile?
I think the Sidekick for hip hop, I think one of the big aspects for hip hop was the ringtones. The MIDI ringtone format that the Sidekick supported was new at its time. I think Nokia had supported it before that, but it was new. So think about, MIDI is the musical instrument digital interface. It was a software-based audio engine that could use real actual audio files. So think about taking ringtones from 1D to 3D. Another interesting point before I get into the hip hop part was, the company that made the first ringtones for the Sidekick was Thomas Dolby's company. And I don't know if you remember Thomas Dolby, Mike Johns. You might have listened to this hit, She Blinded Me with Science, back in the 80s.
Okay.
Wow. But, you know, it created a whole new revenue stream. And when you think about the fact that at a point in time, it was the hottest device on the street, and working with you and Urban World Wireless. Flashback. We were able to bring, you know, hip hop artists were able to use not only their music, but their rhymes and create ringtones out of them, which then allowed them to promote themselves on one of the hottest devices out there. We started doing deals with not only the hip hop artists that I was building relationships with, and with Ski, to support the product or have the product. They now got to be a part and be in the product. Being in the club, you had your ringtones on the Sidekick itself. From E40, we had Cat Williams doing comedy tones back then. Really innovative stuff. And this is back when we had MySpace and AOL.
Well, one of the things that you said that really resonates with me is hip hop now having email addresses. And when I look at the BlackBerry device, I don't know if that was something that they capitalized on, but I can definitely say with the T-Mobile device, you had every DJ Ski at T-Mail. DJ Who Kid, DJ Clue, DJ, you know what I mean? All those cats was on that at T-Mail. So it was the original Gmail, that part.
That part, yeah.
No.
And I'd say the second part you asked about, what did hip hop do for T-Mobile?
Yes.
And you brought up DJ Ski. Shout out to DJ Ski and
Shout out to DJ Ski.
Steve Rifkin as well. Thinking about
Shout out Steve Rifkin.
Thinking about when I met them at the T-Mobile offices.
Hello.
Yeah, I think, as part of, when Ski and Rifkin came to the T-Mobile offices after getting a meeting with some executives who didn't show to the meeting,
right.
Left me to attend. And
that's like the genesis of this, right? Where it was the fact that Steve Rifkin and DJ Ski was connected with T-Mobile to do something, and they didn't show up. So these people got on a plane from LA to Seattle, and no one was there.
That's right. And it was me. As fate would have it, Mike Johns, I've always been a hip hop head. And a little known fact was that the T-Mobile executives, when we were first working on bringing the Sidekick to market, they thought this would be for early adopters, road warriors, more business people, where I saw this as the two-way pager replacement. And had been fighting that battle internally, but again, as a young man who listened to hip hop, that those thoughts weren't always taken seriously, and I really pushed my agenda. And then I met Ski and Rifkin, and totally like-minded, and listening to the artists that they had. I think Akon was the new artist they were getting ready They were getting ready to break. They talked about this new kid, 50 Cent, that they knew about.
Right.
I think the world aligned, and again, we were like-minded, and I really listened to what they had to say and what their thoughts were around how to get this device and what it would do, how the artists would love to get their hands on the device. And, I went to battle after that meeting with them and went and fought for the first marketing budget to work with Ski. The first thing we did was street teams, where they
flashback.
Flashback
to street teams.
Shout out to the street teams. Street teams inspired at the malls, right? And the other piece was to give Ski and Steve some devices, and they basically went on tour and visited different DJs, and basically pulled the device out on air. I think the first one I heard that they recorded for me was Big Boy's show. And
this is like the blueprint to how Beats by Dre would have got their product off, right? Given it, and I want you to elaborate a little bit more. You found the target audience, and that's a lot of your vision, right? So T-Mobile had its original vision, and there was some resistance versus where you were at. You found DJ Ski along with Steve Rifkin, and that gave you some yokeness. And so now all of a sudden you're pushing it, but tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So, again, when you think about your target audience, and you really have to hone in on your target audience's needs.
How did you feel that hip hop was the target audience versus T-Mobile looking at business people? So when we talk about the two-way replacement, that's a big device for hip hop. The D-Boys from Oakland to Brooklyn had that, Chirac included, Detroit in there. That was the go-to device. That was your staple. You were somebody of importance, Will, if you had your two-way pager, right? And that kind of set the tone for this T-Mobile Sidekick. Will, what you thought from Detroit?
Yeah, I mean, the Sidekick was everything, man. From the little button that you would push on the side, and the little sounds that it would make, to being able to customize it. Myself, I had a Ninja Turtle version, so I think that was the Sidekick 2. The Sidekick 2, And the thing that I liked about it is that we had AOL Messenger that was introduced into the field.
That was
AOL
big for
Messenger
the culture, right?
was top. Yeah, it was big for the culture. You know, it was a way for you to be able to send text back and forth. So now if you wanted to get with a young lady, you know, you would be able to text her and you could see that she was getting the text. So you knew she was getting the text. And then you say, hey, let's meet up over here. And then you could just give her a phone call and then you guys would link like that. So there are a lot of first for that. I mean, because we went from a Nokia phone to the Sidekick and it was like, whoa. The buzz around that device was just incredible.
That's crazy, man. And I look at AOL and what that did. You know, brothers and sisters, especially the gangsters, this is their first time having an email address.
Exactly.
Right? No one expected that. Like, this became before the Gmail. Was Gmail, Jeff, out at the time?
No, there was no Gmail.
It was Gmail.
Yeah, it was T-mail. Yahoo Messenger.
How crazy was that? And what are some of the other devices or not devices, but other features that the Sidekick offered that was new and embraced by the culture? We talk about the instant messenger. I like to say text messaging, right? Before it was all about T9.
Text messaging.
Well, way back. T9 right. Sound old as hell.
That keyboard, right? You had a QWERTY keyboard, and you had an interesting way to get to that keyboard, right? Like, who didn't sit there and flip that screen out all the time? Like, it was part of what you did. In the beginning, the look on people's faces when you did that was like, what is that?
That's the big thing. What is that? Right. Yeah, right. You're right.
So, you know, and I think back to that and the fact that I knew about the two-way pager. I knew it was in the culture, was in the scene, listening and watching videos back when we used to watch music videos. And I knew about that. When you look at the device and you look at the keyboard, it really was, think about it, it was a pager, but it had all these new features and it also included a phone. The phone wasn't the strong part of the device. With that phone too, a lot of things had to come together. The other thing that came with that is we launched the first unlimited wireless data plan with that product.
That's something that we got to really cap on real quick. Prior to, an unlimited data plan was unheard of. So T-Mobile was really about some serious innovation to, one, have a device of such, and then fuel that, like the gasoline to that was this unlimited data, when prior it was all, you had increments.
Yeah, you had megabyte buckets, and a lot of, you got to think long ago, the devices that were out there that were using data plans were data cards that you stuck in your laptop, or you had data cards that you stuck in their handheld device that you actually slid the data card into, you know, right, with an antenna on it. So this was consumer focused. It was data first. It was about all the different ways that you could communicate. AOL used data, your email used data, web browsing was actually a lot of drain on the network on the data.
Everything was, that's like the dinosaur age, right? Compared to where we are today, that we take for granted.
We take for granted, yeah. And you know how I always looked at it when I was pushing the unlimited data plan was, we take all the fun things and the communication aspects from your desktop at home, made it mobile. And when you're on your desktop at home using AOL or browsing the web or sending an email, you weren't thinking about how much data am I using? And there was no reason to have to do that in the mobile world as well.
Like this device, more impactful than the BlackBerry, that helped usher in, would you say, the mobile first mentality?
Yeah, because, you know, as Danger, the company that created the product, called it the hip top. So their whole idea,
hip top,
instead of there was a desktop, a laptop, and a hip top.
How the fuck did you guys come up with the name? What was that story? Me and DJ Will talking, he's really big on, like, how did you get here? The arrival, the unveiling. And
yeah, so it's like where how did we get to this point?
Right.
I remember even, you know, with the Sidekick coming out and the cases that came with the Sidekick. Sometimes people would just walk around with the case to let you know, hey, I got that new. I got the new.
You didn't even the fake Louis.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, you could put the Louis Vuittons. We're not gonna talk about that. We
Yeah,
don't want to get in no
the hood
trouble.
had
But
all that. They had the Gucci cover, the Gucci Sidekick covers. We on all that.
yeah, because I remember just walking around with the case on my belt buckle. Like I would just walk around with the case, like, yeah, you know what's up. I'm in touch. And
I'm
then
in touch.
especially now, before Facebook and Twitter and all of that type of stuff, we had MySpace.
Right.
We had
way
MySpace.
back.
So we're going in on MySpace.
Right now, don't even know what that MySpace. What?
What's MySpace? Remember what was the guy that he was like your
Tom.
first friend? Yeah,
Tom. I talked to Tom about 3 weeks ago. What was the approval process to go from hip top to Sidekick? Kind of like hurricanes. How do they name these hurricanes? How the heck, give us the insight on how did the committees be like, how did you guys get to the final approval of the Sidekick?
Well, so the naming process is basically you sit in a room with a bunch of folks, you write names on a whiteboard, all kinds of names. So it just starts with brainstorming. And then you start to vote, you whittle it down. I did not come up with the name Sidekick. It got closer and closer. And then as we got to our kind of final candidates, we started talking through what are all the things this device does for you. Part of this was about, it's the Robin to your Batman and this is your Robin, and which the Sidekick became part of that because it just fit with, this is the ultimate communication device. It keeps you in touch with your friends in all these different ways, whether it's email. Mike, thinking back to the culture, when you talked about the DJs having email addresses, not that it tried to be, but it became a business device because now all of a sudden you had email, you were running a business from it. So this is the ultimate Sidekick.
This is a part of how, when we talk about digital literacy, the beginning stages of that, I can't say the BlackBerry did that. BlackBerry, aka Crackberry, it started some things, but the Sidekick and the fact that you can have a POP3 email account, how big was that? I want to move forward and just look at the role ringtones played for Sidekick and for as a mobile carrier, working for a mobile carrier. What was the role that the ringtone played?
Well, the ringtones, as we said, Sidekick came with the first app store, the download catalog. The ringtones were in, as I mentioned, a MIDI format, which is a musical instrument digital interface, which made the files smaller and compressed. Yes, and used actual audio files, which we were able to just give instructions to composers or artists that they could just follow the instructions on how to create one of these files, right? You know that well, right, Mike?
Yeah.
And what it did, with the fact that now you had ringtones, and then back then we had caller tunes, which were also, you could have playback while you're calling someone else. Instead of hearing the phone ring, someone could set for you to hear basically a ringtone while you were calling them. It just created a whole new revenue stream for T-Mobile with the ringtone business because it exploded. Everyone was downloading ringtones and buying ringtones. Today's world, you don't buy ringtones. You just set a file as your ringtone.
They just put blockchain videos out on the market. The rapper Money Man just put out a blockchain powered video. Just curious, could ringtones come back? That was a big deal. That was probably, and you can correct me, but I would think in the mobile space, that was probably our first disruption of consumer disruption. Like, it's one thing to buy a phone. It's another thing to say, like, now I want to purchase a ringtone. As I talk this out real time, I think of Spotify and Spotify getting people to get into a subscription model.
Yeah, it could be.
How awesome was that a learning curve?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And you saw, it took off like wildfire, right? And we looked for all different kinds of ways. Back then I'm going to take it a little bit beyond ringtones, but you could also pay and download wallpapers for your phone.
Wallpapers.
That was another big business. Was customizing your phone from a digital aspect before, in today's world, that's all we know is digital. But back then, those were some of the first digital products, right? Ringtones and wallpapers.
Wallpapers. And this is how we actually got to work together, right? This became the money. This was the sauce. It was like content. A rap artist can make music and perform, do a music video, be featured in a magazine. That was that one-dimensional play, early 2000, right?
Yeah, and it even went on beyond musicians, right? Cat Williams was.
Man, Cat Williams killed it, right? He killed it times 10. But maybe to segue into Cat Williams, I really look at the fact that what the Sidekick did, when I look at what the Sidekick did for hip hop, it became a revenue stream. It became a portal to other opportunities that I didn't know, right? Especially for hip hop, because most of the people that, I work with some of the biggest programmers, developers, coders, all that. Their first wave into how they got there was through music. Sidekick played a role in that.
Well, I mean, think about this too. I think, back then, I still remember some quote somewhere that said, oh, they gave it to rappers, and it was in a facetious manner. It connected hip hop with technology.
Hip hop and technology. What do you mean?
Well, now all of a sudden, hip hop was interested in technology, starting with the Sidekick.
Yes.
And then technology, as the Sidekick became a part of pop culture, and that was all influenced by hip hop, technology became more interested in hip hop as well as a result. Think of how many hip hop artists have either had business ventures into technology or promoting technology after the Sidekick. How much of that happened before that time?
Jeff, now one of the things that you actually, credit is due to you, where we talked about DJ Ski, Steve Rifkin, the hip hop formula, getting T-Mobile excited on board with this Sidekick venture. Did not something happen on a television show, late night TV show?
Yes.
Letterman.
Yes. So here's the story, which is, no one really knew what I was doing with hip hop, other than they knew I'd got, that through the relationships that I had with Ski, and then began to build with other artists, from Nick Cannon to The Game and 50. They knew that the product
were on a certain level, they're like, okay, that's cool. That's great. 50 was 50. And again, 50 was not who 50 is now.
Right.
So they were still just looking at it like, this is on. I'm gonna just say it for you. The Chitlin circuit. It was over there. Like, okay, Jeff, that you're down with these people. Let's keep it real. I'm on that tequila. Hello.
Well, Mike, I wouldn't use those terms, but yes, what
terms would you use?
I would say that they weren't the audience for hip hop, so they didn't see the effect of it, right? Versus what I did, forming a relationship with E40, who had been one of my heroes forever, right?
Yes.
One of my most favorite hip artists of all time.
Big boss. Yes.
And so for me, the excitement of just getting to have that relationship and building relationships with artists as a hip hop head was big for me, but in the corporate culture, they didn't know what any of that meant. And so until the Sidekick made its way to Ashton Kutcher through hip hop, right? You think about the Paris Hiltons and all that was all influenced by hip hop.
Right.
Ashton Kutcher got it, which then he was dating back then Demi Moore, which was a big thing, which then Demi had to have a sidekick as well. And
that's crazy. Demi and Bruce Willis.
Yep. And Ashton and her had just started dating, and I think she was on Letterman. He asked her about Ashton, and he sent her a text message, and she pulled out her sidekick on the show on Letterman, said, "Oh, that's him right there." And I'll tell you,
it's crazy because they are hip hop. And I want to make that clear. Ashton know what it is. Demi Moore know what it is. Bruce Willis know what it is. You can see photos. Go on Google and see them with your favorite hip hop artists. Hello.
Right. But that was a moment that internally at T-Mobile, they got it because, again, that they were the audience of Letterman. So It resonated with them, and they saw how what we were doing and what I was doing led up to that, and they got it.
You just finished listening to another episode of Yo, Check This Out, connecting the streets from LA to the world. Follow Yo, Check This Out on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn for the hottest news in tech. Be sure to hit that like button.